Aha! We are back again for another edition of the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop, and I am your co-host, Ray Russell, along for the ride here again this week as Bob continues to tell his story of the Amarillo Territory back in 1971. This week, Bob's going to talk all about his feud with the Fighting Funk family, of course, Terry and Dory Funk Jr., as well as father, Dory Funk Sr. Bob also going to discuss his very first heel turn in the world of professional wrestling took place right there in Amarillo. And we're going to be discussing that and so much more here this week. But first, just a quick reminder, guys, that you can listen to the Wrestling Stoop and other shows like the Wrestling Memory Grenade, the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, the Glory Days Grapple Con with Barry Rose and Captain Nick Massey, and coming soon, the Pro Wrestling Academy Podcast with host Dan Giannetti. And hey, let's not forget about Monday Warfare, the battles within, all about the Raw versus Nitro Monday Night War. As we tell that story 1 week at a time, you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And be sure to follow us on social media. You guys can follow Bob, friend Bob, over at Facebook.com/Poor Bob Roop. Bob, looking forward to hearing from each and every one of you. You guys can also follow me on social media. Follow me on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. And last but not least, before we get the ball rolling here this week, now is a tremendous time to become a WrestleCopia patron. Talking about that $5 all-access tier over at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. That address again, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. And that all-access tier going to get you so many gifts for just $5, including all of my insanely detailed show notes for every episode of The Grenade Show, Monday Warfare, and the Regional Wrestling Podcast. You'll also get early access to many of the podcasts here on WrestleCopia, where you can listen days and sometimes as much as a week earlier than the rest of the listeners. Then from there, it's remastered versions of the earliest episodes of The Grenade Show covering the 1989 NWA project. Includes enhanced sound quality, plus new content and conversation never heard before. But that's still not all, guys. You also get digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure, random bonus video drops, and of course, our Patreon exclusive watch-along series covering many past WWF and WCW events. And you get all of that for the low, low price of just $5. $5. No subscription. Cancel anytime. Show your support. Give it a try for a month. I think you'll like all the content that I offer, and every penny that I receive goes right back here into keeping the WrestleCopia Podcast Network up and running for the months and the years to come. And now with all of that said and out of the way, time to jump back into things here this week. Continue on our story with the Amarillo Territory, circa 1971, and in order to do that, we got to bring back the man who lived it himself. Here he is, the host of the show. Welcome back, Bob Roop.
Hi, Ray. It's good to be back with you, my friend. We're going back down memory lane again this week.
I think all of this is memory lane, Bob. That's the best part of it.
Well, it's true. You know, the thing is, when you're going down there, I think maybe in my memory, maybe all memory lanes, what you try to go along the sides of the path are flowers rather than weeds or thorns, so that when you get into good stories, or when you get into stories at all, that they're good ones rather than ones that are unpleasant or, bring back, bad thoughts and rekindle you with bad feelings and things that you put aside for so long. But we're not doing that. All this is, I try to get rid of those bad things so they don't mess up what's going on with me now.
Well, I would consider your relationship with Roy Shire a weed or a thorn. So we have discussed a little bit of everything here. But it's what made Bob Roop, and it's what, the wonderful stories throughout so far, and we just keep going.
Well, it's a good point. It made me think, until we started talking about it, I hadn't thought about Shire more than maybe once or twice a year. And
I apologize.
About having millions of thoughts a year and once or twice a year. And that's kind of the epitaph, in a sense, for someone what kind of life did they have in terms of impacting other people, you would like to have people remember you for one reason or another. Maybe there's things that come up that remind you of them. In my case, maybe Thanksgiving parade, the Pillsbury Doughboy said, "Hey, that looks like Bob Roop." But more people would have a good memory, positive reactions, rather than thinking, "Oh my God, I don't want to think about that." So,
right,
yeah.
I think we've done a little bit of everything here, but certainly more so on the positive side of people enjoying the great stories, lots of laughs. So there's always that.
True.
And hopefully we cover a little more here, maybe at the expense of you this week. We'll have to wait and see how things go as we continue on in the wild, wild west, the Amarillo Territory. Last week, guys, we talked about Bob arriving here. We talked about some of the names, and you got it right. I'll give you a 7 for 7 as far as the stops go. You did call Lubbock Lubble or something along those lines, but I give it to you anyway. And I think you did great memory of, hitting, I guess I would too if I had to drive 1,700 miles in 3 days. But
yeah,
I thought that was awesome. And that's what we're going to continue on this week, Bob, with talking a little bit more about Amarillo.
Yeah. Well, I think about all those miles, you can almost go into a coma on the road. You're so used to, and also I've mentioned it time and time again, but when one of the most positive or interesting things that you might see after miles and hundreds of miles of absolutely no any kind of eye candy out there, to see a tarantula walking across the road only because it's so unusual, you'd think, well, after looking at mesquite and tumbleweeds and cactus and dirt and sand, I was like, oh yeah, that tarantula, boy, that woke me up. Oh, there's something alive out here besides me.
That's
so yeah,
crazy to think. Absolutely crazy to think about that. But this week, we're actually going to go into some of the results. We're going to scroll through the results that are out there of your time in the Amarillo Territory, take a look at some of your opponents and specifically how you were booked in the big city, Amarillo there, your run to the top as they built you up slowly into a main event type position. And then, boom, the heel turn against the Funks of all people. We're going to talk all about that this week, and a few other names maybe we'll dive into as well if we have time. But before we get going, I just wanted to send out a special thank you to several wrestling fans and historians out there for their help with the research on this program. Some directly, some indirectly, but we greatly appreciate your passion to preserving wrestling history. We appreciate your contributions. Just had a few quick names at the top of the show here before we get going. Want to say thank you to Jeff Sharkey, your lookalike Bob, once again sending me a bunch of Amarillo ads and newspaper clippings of your time in Amarillo. He also sent me a few notes from a few of your matches here we're going to get into. Also, thank you to Al Getz of Charting the Territories. Great research and podcast there with John Boucher. Al, actually, he did a deep dive study on the Amarillo Territory in 1971, so it just worked out for us that way. But he had some great notes, once again, in regards to your time there, specifically in your heel period. So I'm looking forward to getting to that today. And last but not least, I mentioned briefly a couple episodes ago about getting help on research with your complete run in Bill Watts' Mid-South Territory. And I didn't want to mention the guy by name until he gave me the okay. Well, now I'm happy to publicly say thank you to Brian Achman for his fandom in Mid-South and his detailed notes that he took while watching the TV program every week back then. Thanks to his notes and vivid memories, has been very helpful in my preparation and research for when we get to your run in the Mid-South.
Oh, well, my thanks go along with it, because these are all things that trigger my memory, having these facts and things, because some of them are minor details, but that put together, they create a full memory. And without them, it doesn't rekindle mine. So my appreciation goes out too. Thank you guys out there for doing that.
Yeah, I know when I first started researching your heel turn here in Amarillo, I actually caught pieces and information of the second week of your turn, and I was like, okay, that wasn't too bad, but there was something missing. And then I realized, oh, this is the second week. And then when I got the information for the first week of your turn and I started putting the puzzle together, I'm like, wow, this is a lot better. And it was, well, we'll get to it later in the program, guys, but I just wanted to point that out, Bob. You said to me, you were like, do you remember all the specifics of my heel turn here? I said, I'll go do the deep dive. And that's what I did. And hopefully, it does trigger a few memories. And certainly I can't wait to get to that point in your career here in the Amarillo Territory, your heel turn, because you get to work all three of the Funks.
Yes. Well, if you think about it, who would be over the most in Amarillo? I don't care if the current world champion, not a Funk, came through there. The Funks, Dory Jr., or Dory Sr. to start with, then Dory Jr., then Terry would be the three wrestlers that would be over by far anybody else coming into the territory, even somebody that came there and stayed there for years. Even Ricky Romero, for example, because, again, the Funks, they got themselves over because they knew they could count on themselves to be there. It was their business. So they invested in themselves. So for them, and the reason I say that is for them to put their own credibility, their own overness, their stature, let's put it this way, as competitors, to invest some of that in me and trying to create me, it really means something as opposed to, for example, Pak Song was in there then, and I did a match or two with him, and I think I beat him at least once or twice, but he was just starting then, and he hadn't developed the stature that he had after being around for 10 years and going to different territories and wreaking havoc, having people like Gary Hart as his manager, and linked up with Gary, and Gary had heat based on all the people he was managing, so he was carrying a ton of heat around with them. And by being linked into that group, well, even being somebody like Pak Song back then didn't have anywhere near back in Amarillo when he was starting, didn't have anywhere near the moment or the importance of beating one of the Funks, which I was looking at some of the past records. I was amazed of actually beating any of them, for that matter, much less all three of them. So, yeah, that does tell a story.
Last week I was reading some excerpts from something that Dory Funk Jr. had penned online, just his brief memories of, the Amarillo Territory. And during that, I did leave something out that I wanted to touch on at the top of the show this week before we get rolling into your matches here in the territory. He mentioned about the television program being on a 5-week bicycle. And for those people that don't know what that means, we talked about how the tape had to be, it took a trip from city to city in order to air. Well, it depended on the date it aired and whatever. And a 5-week bicycle would imply that whatever aired in Amarillo this week may not air in some cities for another 4 or 5 weeks. And what that means is you guys had to keep track of what story was going on where at what time. It was different in every city.
Yes, and that you talk about creating a paranoia for a booker, but they were on top of that. They were used to doing that because that was the way it had to be. I think in Florida, they'd made a weekly tape. Now it was delayed a week in Jacksonville because Jacksonville ran. They made the tape on Wednesday, and Jacksonville, the show in Jacksonville, the live show was on Thursday. So there was no way that the TV tape that they made on Wednesday could be seen. It wouldn't be seen in Jacksonville till that weekend. On Saturday, it played in Jacksonville. So whatever they did in the studio in Tampa at the Snake Pit there wouldn't be seen until Saturday. So Jacksonville was a week behind. And you go down there, and I remember, this is a good time to bring it in.
Okay.
It reminds me of it. Dusty Rhodes and I did an angle on television. I won't go into detail, but he left me laying on TV, and then we were booked in Jacksonville, and the TV that we did it on hadn't played in Jacksonville yet. The week before Dusty and I met in the main event, they'd had 2 ring battle royal. Andre had been there, and Dusty against somebody, top guy. And it was a big house. I think it was, I might have been like $32,000. It's just been pretty big money in those days, especially in Jacksonville. So Dusty and I came in there basically in a cold match in the main event. A bad booking, really, because you'd think you'd want to give us the benefit of what we did on TV to give me some credibility going in there, because I didn't have any angle. I didn't have any heat at all vis-a-vis Dusty. So we went in there the week afterwards, I think our house was 30. It was $1,000 less. I was working in an office then, so I had access to these figures. It was $1,000 less than it had been the week before for the 2-ring battle royal, and that was the one where Dusty came back, and after the match, he beat me right in the middle of the ring. I was bleeding, and I'm trying to wipe the blood off my face, and he came in the little side dressing room where I was in there by myself, and he said, "Hey, great house." He said, "It's up in it." I said, I was stupid enough, being young and green in the booking and with serious egomaniacs. I said, actually, no, it's, you know what, it's down $1,000. But I tell you, I said, we're in here cold. It's a hell of a house.
Right.
And he looked at me, he was looking at me in the mirror. I'm looking at him in the mirror. He's looking at me in the big mirror. He says, well, let me tell you something. He says, I'm in the big leagues now. And if you can't measure up, he said, I'll get someone else. Walked out of the little room and went back to his own private dressing room. And I was absolutely astounded. But now, we'll get into that down the road, but now I understand where he was coming from compared to where I was at. He was in the big leagues. Let's put it this way. We just had the Super Bowl yesterday. If he was like the quarterback for the Kansas City and Mahomes,
right?
He was like the quarterback for our promotion there. And he also had the office hold. I mean, he ended up getting points in the office while he was still there. So he was in the big leagues. And at the time, you talk about being upset and frustrated and insulted. Here I am bleeding from the guy just letting him beat me. Not only that, but the day before on television, they left me laying in the ring. And here's a guy telling me, if you can't measure up, I'll get someone else. I was seriously offended. But again, looking back at it now, I see where he was coming from. Now, I don't think he should have said it. I think it was okay for him to think it, but for him to say it, he's looking at a guy that could say the guy lost it, could go out there and make him look like a little kid who can't find his lollipop if he wanted to. But no, I would never do that. Maybe he knew that. And the reason, again, Dusty was thinking that, or maybe he was assuming that they'd seen our angle down there. But I told him, what I'm talking about, I told him, I said, they haven't seen the TV here yet. So anyway, it was a week delayed, but for all the other towns, they would get the tape out as soon as they would make copies, make dubs of it, and get them out as soon as they could. In Amarillo, you couldn't do that. I mean, how are you going to do it? They didn't have UPS then.
Right.
And the U.S. mail, you wait till the next day and mail it, you have no idea, no way of knowing if it's going to get there.
Dory did mention something at some point in that time period about a bus, so maybe they put it on a Greyhound. I really have no idea. I don't know what they were doing there, but yeah, it's something else. And that didn't just happen in Amarillo or in Jacksonville. I mean, that was everywhere. It happened in Mid-South. I know in Memphis, as crazy as this sounds, as late as the late 1980s, they were at least 3 weeks off in some of the smaller towns. 3 weeks in the late 80s. I mean, by then there's things out there where people can start getting some information, and they would redo some of the angles. Maybe they vacated the title of Memphis 1 week. 3 weeks later, it was, vacated the same exact spot in Louisville. It's like, well, guys, you guys are really taking a chance in this period in time in wrestling. But yeah, so I mean, it's not something that was just specific to Amarillo, but I just thought, man, 5 weeks on a bicycle, that's crazy. I mean, you guys really got to keep up with what's airing where, so make sure what's hot and what's not. Did we do this angle yet? No, not for another 3 weeks. Oh, okay. So
can I give you? Let me give another story.
Yeah.
About the tapes. I was working with the Papos. Ronnie Garvin and I and Bobby had gone with them when our takeover bid in Knoxville we basically just ran out of money and realized we weren't going to be making it. So we ended up going to work for them. And anyway, I was in Knoxville. I was, even though they were based in Lexington, Kentucky, which was, I don't know, 150 miles from Knoxville. I was in Knoxville at the time, and they had me drive over to Nashville. And it's about, 300 or 400 miles. I remember I borrowed a vehicle, my own car. I had gotten in an accident with it. I borrowed a vehicle. I borrowed a little Japanese vehicle from Buddy Landell, and I drove 7 hours over from Knoxville to get over to Nashville. And I got there, and I walked into the building, and here comes Randy Savage and Old Man Papo, and they're yelling at me, they haven't seen the tape yet here. They haven't seen the tape here. Get out of here. Get lost. You can't be here. So I had to turn around and go back and drive 7 hours back home.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I didn't
no cell phones, huh?
Yeah, and I didn't even get a payoff for it. You talk about a miserable day. Oh,
well,
man.
Angelo Poffo involved. I didn't expect you to get any type of pay for that. I was going to make a joke when you were talking about a taping bicycle in the ICW. I was going to say that probably hasn't even reached all the cities yet here in 2024. But
yeah, well, I'm surprised. Yeah, Angelo didn't charge me some way for
that is for showing up. You could have exposed everything. You owe me $100. Yeah. I'm taking it out of your next 17 paychecks because.
yeah.
No, that's pretty crappy. That's a hell of a drive and a half.
You talk about needed to have some kind of a feeling for being in the business to put up with that kind of crap. If you had to do that even once a week, I never would have lasted in the business having to do that. But you know what? That reminded me in a way of Amarillo, going back to where we're at geographically in our talks, because it wasn't that much like in that. It was like 7 hours one way, half hour out of the vehicle, and then 7 hours back the other way. There wasn't even like a couple of hours of being at a show and doing a match and whatever, having a break.
And Angelo, I'm going to guess that he didn't even bat an eye. He didn't think, geez, this guy just traveled 7 hours. It's kind of shitty for me to send him on his way. He just didn't give a shit and said, no, we don't need you yet.
Oh, no, he didn't care. No, he didn't care about that. As long as it didn't cost him any money, he didn't care.
The miser.
When we get down the line, I'll tell you a story about one I did have where he had to pay $1,000 that day at a match. He had to pay a fan out there $1,000.
Yes.
And you should have seen. He was trying everything in the world he could do to keep from having to pay that money. And that's another good story we got waiting down the line.
Yeah, old Angelo fought the law, and the law won there, I think.
Big time. Sounds like you know the story.
Yeah, I've heard it, but I don't mind hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, here. So I look forward to that here on this program.
Sounds good.
Yeah. But we'll jump back into Amarillo for now, guys. And I'm just gonna run down some names that were here when you were here. We don't have to touch on any of these because you've actually spoken of some of these guys in the past, and some we've already talked about. You said you didn't really have a whole lot on, but I just want to give everybody an idea of all the names you were encountering here throughout this 6-month period. Guys like one of the top draws, one of the top heels, Cyclone Negro, Jerry and Nick Kozak, Ricky Romero. Mr. Wrestling's here, Gordon Nelson under the hood. That was one of the first people you encountered in Florida when you got your break back in '69. He's here in Amarillo with you. Also, J.C. Dykes and the Infernos are here at this point in time. So, again, more people you're familiar with. We talked about Nick Roberts, who was a promoter and wrestler. Bobby Duncombe he was here a little bit, but he was actually leaving to Florida because he was working his way in there. He beat you for that Brass Knucks title when you were leaving Florida. We talked about Alex Perez briefly, El Santo and the McGuire twins working El Paso and Albuquerque. A few more names that we didn't really discuss yet. I'm just going to run through them. If any of them catch your ear, if you're like, oh, you know what? I remember this guy or whatever, we can touch on it. If not, we'll move on. But just more names that we didn't really mention last week. You get your start. One of the guys you wrestle a few times early on, a guy by the name of Salvador Dominguez, kind of I don't want to call him a prelim guy, but a little underneath there. Don Duffy. Woody Farmer was your tag team partner a few times early on. Pac Song, you've talked about Pac. Lorenzo Parenti and Bobby Hart, great heel tag team.
They were good.
Luke Brown, big Luke Brown, who would go on to team with Grizzly Smith, Apache Bull Ramos, Duke Myers, and a guy by the name of Lightning R. Jones, who was also Sonny King in a previous and future name. So I know you've had experiences with Sonny King because you said he hung out with Sputnik when you did. So you it was through association that you knew of Sonny King. But if any of those names ring a bell here, Parenti and Bobby Hart, Luke Brown, any of those guys?
Really, I'm sorry, but not nothing really comes to mind. nothing on the road or in a match or anything that
No sweat.
that stands out. Which is no, I mean, think about it. Over the years, you're in so many different dressing rooms, including foreign countries, that a lot of things tend to run together, but nothing there really.
Okay. So this was funny to me, so I wanted to bring it up here. Back in your trip to Japan to the JWA, that night one matchup against Okuma, you come back home to Florida, and Okuma follows you to Florida. Now you're off to Amarillo, and Okuma again follows you to Amarillo. Are you following me? Like, what are the odds that you never met this guy in your life? You go to Japan, and now everywhere you go, there he is. And he gets a pretty good run here in a tag team with Masayo Koma. And they're going to later. I think Koma goes on to work for All Japan until he retires after this United States run. But it's just funny. 3 places in a row you run into Okuma here.
Wow, you talk about the coincidence. You say you don't believe in it. Well, if that's not, I don't know what is, because why would the guy want to follow me?
Yeah,
I don't know if he healed up from the time I pounded on him in Japan. But that was all forgotten, I think. My remembering of the Japan match with him was because I was young and I didn't have like a treasure chest of memories built up, or a Pandora's box. Let's put it that way. I mean, they're not all positive. So
I think everybody that works Japan, they'll remember their first match in Japan. It's just slightly different than here in the States. So I get it. And then of course you guys, beat the crap out of each other on top of that. So there's always that.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, I don't remember ever being. If we were in the same dressing room in Florida or Amarillo, I don't remember talking to him. And I'm not sure if it's possible he didn't know much English. I knew no Japanese other than konnichiwa, a few of the hello, goodbye, and how much is the pizza or something like that.
Ichiban.
Yeah. So I don't, again, as far as personal interaction, it's just not there. Mm-hmm. I still recall, though, looking at him, and I hadn't looked in the mirror yet, and noticing that his elbows and knees and other parts of his body some of them were bleeding a little bit, and some of them had red splotches. He has red splotches all over his chest and shoulders, and, looked like one of his ears was puffing up. So I do recall that. But when I saw him in Florida and in Texas, that was completely different circumstances. I was in Florida. He was a newcomer, really. I had been there for a while, and in Amarillo, I was figured in, so to speak. I didn't go out there to be a preliminary guy, because the way they were building me in Florida, I don't know why the Funks would have to come out there just to put people over and do jobs to build other people. Well, it wouldn't mean anything unless they built me first. And we'll get into it, but the way that they had been building me, they were planning on me staying there a couple of years at least, because they were building me up to have some lasting stature there.
For sure.
Have me beat everybody.
I think even though we're going to get into some of the stuff you do here, as crazy as it might sound, I feel like that was just the beginning. Like there was going to be so much more to come, and that was just kind of testing the waters, getting you ready, so to speak. But man, what a job they do, man.
Well, you know something, you're exactly right, because not that much later, I told you, our audience, that I got a call in Leeds, England. Dory Funk Sr. ran me down. How he did it, I don't know, because I wasn't in touch with anybody back in the state.
Yeah,
I don't know. Have no idea how he found out that I was there, but he called me. I was staying with the wrestling promoter, the George Rowisco, in Leeds, England, and my girlfriend and I stayed with him for a month, which is another story. How could you possibly go to some guy's promoter's house and think it's okay for you and your girlfriend to stay there for a month?
We're just going to crash here.
Yeah, that's another story. But that he could run me down, Senior I'm talking about, and find out I was there. And he offered me $800 a week, which today's money was that $2,000.
Oh, a lot more than that, Bob. A lot more than that.
Yeah. So he was offering me some serious money to come back there, which all that goes to say is it has nothing to do with me and my stature. but it has to go say with what you're saying. They had already invested so much into me. It would make sense from a financial point of view and a business point of view to get me back there and try to get some of that back.
Oh, yeah.
Take advantage of it. If I did get over even stronger and stay there and draw money for them. I mean, Cyclone stayed there for 8 years. If I could do something like that, I mean, they would be great. Yeah, you're exactly right. And the idea of thinking that they were billing me for a long future, not something, he's staying here 6 months or a year. Yeah. And also in a way that even if I was in there for a year or two, if I left, then I could come back and they wouldn't have to build me all over again. I could come back and within a week or two, I could be in main events again. I could even start a return visit without people even knowing I was going to be there by running into a match, somebody's match, and beating up a babyface, and then you're back on the scene, and you get figured in that way. So,
well, that's what you were talking about with Bobby Shane when he knew when he left Australia, he could come right back and be plugged right in the main event of Florida, and that's kind of what you could have done here. Had things been a little different, had the Amarillo Territory thrived moving forward as well. But right now, it's doing pretty damn well, especially with everybody that's on top here. But I was just looking at the results. You come in, your first match, we talked about it, your last match in Florida, July 1st. 2 days later, you're in Amarillo for TV, July the 3rd, Bob Roop over Sal Dominguez, and it begins there. You work Bobby Duncombe, who you just worked in Florida, Mr. Wrestling, who was Gordon Nelson, you remember him.
Right.
Some tag team matches. You teamed with Woody Farmer, some, like I said. You wrestled against the Infernos and J.C. Dykes, no strangers to you. The Infernos, by this point, they were doing the clubfoot gimmick. I don't know if you remember that, where they loaded boot. A lot of people think the grappler, Lynn Denton, started that, but it started way back when, I believe in the 60s. I think Frankie Kane was one of the Infernos when they started doing that. Let's see, where you got Jerry Kozak here, and then it begins. The very first matchup at the Sports Arena in Amarillo, Bob Roop over Don Duffy, who was the very bottom guy, but by all accounts, a very solid preliminary guy. And basically top to bottom, I'm looking at the roster here in Amarillo. It doesn't get any lower than Don Duffy. And I'm not saying that, I know that sounds terrible, but I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm trying to point out how solid the talent roster was.
Right. Well, the way that they put me over, even if it was with someone who had been beaten before on a regular basis, was a way for me to also if nothing else, if I couldn't do anything else, was to get that finishing move over, the shoulder breaker.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure, I think I was using it by then.
Yes, you definitely were, because we're gonna discuss a very important match later on that you used to defeat someone with that move.
So because that was such an unusual move, in fact, I never saw it used during my career. A lot of times you have a finishing move that looks fantastic, and you go back to the area you left where you just demonstrated 6 months earlier. You go back there, and all the preliminary guys are using your finish as a high spot.
I was going to say, by the 1980s, a lot of guys were using that move just as another move in the match.
Yes. And which is, I understand why, but it's stupid, really, because there's certain moves. I mean, you pile drive a guy in a chair or something, he really shouldn't kick out.
Right.
Unless it's maybe Andre or somebody, but then.
Well, if you can pile drive Andre,
exactly.
Then, exactly. More power to you.
That's what I was saying. Wait a minute. If you got a hippo in there, would you help you pile drive Andre?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I think maybe like a Stan Hansen or a Terry Gordy might have been able to pull that off based on their size, but Andre would have had to have been very cooperative, no doubt. Oh, man.
It would have been funny. A funny spot with Andre is if you acted like you got him down, you hit him with a gimmick or something on a chair, and or you're not down, but you just got him selling a little bit, and you act like you're going to try to pile drive him, and before you can't even budge him, and then he just goes ahead and stands up with you draped around his head, and stands up, and you're still hanging on for dear life, and he just reaches up and kind of plucks you off, pulls you around in front of him, and just holding you by the throat with one hand and shaking his finger in your face with the other, shaking his head and going, no, that's not a good idea. And then, of course, just obliterating you. That'd be a funny spot to me, but
Well, we know what you would have booked with Andre. So.
Oh, well, we told you the story about Bobby and I.
Yes, I love that one. Yeah, when you guys are getting too much heat and Andre's laughing.
Well, if people really do like somebody, and they liked Andre, because you could count on him to come in if a heel really needed a thrashing. Andre could do it, or at the very least, he could embarrass the heck out of people, where the bad guys would leave, in a sense, vanquished. They weren't able to beat him anyway. So the fans liked him. And so if you're looking like you're going to kill the guy, they will. You think, who would want to think you need to rescue Andre? Yeah, good times.
Well, that was Andre versus B Square, Bob Orton and Bob Roop there. So that would have been good times. I would love to have seen that. It's just funny stuff. It feels like an Andre rib right on the spot. So your very first match in the sports arena in Amarillo, it's a win over Don Duffy. Reportedly, it goes 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Pretty quick squash, opens the show. And, it goes from there. And they do kind of a quick build. We're going to see every week you build up just a little bit more. You're in some tag matches against Parenti and Bobby Hart for the titles. By all accounts, they were just as over as a lot of the singles guys here. They were a huge tag team managed by Buck Robley during this period.
Yeah, it was. In a lot of these South Texas towns, wrestling was. I don't know if there was a convention center or a concert hall in places like Odessa. Mm-hmm. I Lubbock was big enough that it was, but some of those smaller towns, I don't know if they had them. Now, of course, El Paso and Albuquerque and Amarillo and Abilene, and those towns had, the normal features of a major city, but a lot of smaller towns didn't. So if you went in there, wrestling might have been the only, let's put it this way, if they did have concerts or things, they didn't have them every week. So wrestling coming in there every week after week, was something that was steady that folks could go to, and that would be their entertainment, and it would be, it would be a big deal. What was happening then would be a major part of their life, because it's not like being in Los Angeles where you're trying to run a wrestling promotion and there's 6 or 7 other kinds of professional sports trying to run the same night you're running.
Yeah.
That's really not a lot of fun, except for the fact you do have millions and millions of potential ticket buyers out there. But I prefer to have like a monopoly on whatever the business is in terms of what night you're going to run your show. You don't have a lot of competition. Yeah. So I think it meant more in those small towns that they got more seriously involved because there weren't that many things dividing or taking away their attention. Plus, they got the TV every week, we assume. And I don't think they'd run a town if there wasn't a TV going in there. So they had their TV every week. Then they had a live show. Well, there's if you're in a little town like Odessa, you've got some. I don't know. Odessa might be humongous today, but at the time it wasn't much. Or don't put me down. It's a great place, but it wasn't a major metropolis. So. Yeah, it would. What was going on with the wrestling would have a lot more importance than it would in places like Madison Square Garden, for example. So,
sure, I get you.
Yeah.
Luckily, for New York City, there's just so many people there that it kind of worked out for them, especially when Bruno was head of the top of the heap there. But no, we go back here. I'm just looking at some of the numbers that some of these cities were doing. Some of the smaller cities, I think it was Abilene, was doing somewhere around 2,500. Meanwhile, I think Lubbock was only drawing around 1,200 every week. But this is the one that popped me. It looks like El Paso was doing around 2,000 or so, 2,300, 2,400, something like that. But we talked a little bit about El Santo last week and what he meant to the wrestling business and especially the Hispanic fans. And I was looking at this, and El Santo had not wrestled, I don't believe, in the year of 1971 for the Amarillo Territory. He had finished up near the end of the year prior, coming in and doing matches. So he finally makes a return after more than 6 months here, and you're only in the business, or only in Amarillo for 3 days, and you walk into a crowd. This is normally 2,400 fans, a crowd of 7,300 fans out to see El Santo here on July 5th. So I thought that was a pretty big deal here.
Was it my first time in the town?
Yes. Yeah, it was your 3rd day in the territory.
Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah. At the time, I had no idea that he was what drew it
Right.
because I had no idea of a history of the town. Yeah. Well, it was clear that when he went out and worked, I remember watching his match that when he went out and worked, you could tell that he was by far the attraction there. So, I mean, probably 3/4 of the crowd was Hispanic.
I was just going to say, we talked about how he worked El Paso and decided it's time to go make another movie.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean,
Well,
I'm sure he got paid pretty well there, drawing almost triple what they normally draw. That's a lot of people to come out there in a town like El Paso, 7,200.
Well, you never know. I mean, Gory Guerrero was the one paying him, and who knows? I don't know what kind of payoff guy Gory was. I don't see. And again, I don't remember. Payoffs weren't my concern for years. They became one, and mainly because when it got to the point that there was no way you could ignore the fact. Well, I'll give you an example. Working against Jack Briscoe in a non-title match because it was supposed to be a title match, but Jack got caught up in that deal where Dory Jr. Got hurt on the ranch and couldn't switch the belt to Jack. Anyway, Jack was supposed to be the champion when he came in, and he wasn't. But I worked against him in Fort Worth, and I don't know if we went an hour. It doesn't matter. It was a good match, and it drew. The building was sold out, and Von Erich paid me $100. Fritz Von Erich.
Wow.
And I left I went and talked to him about it, and he tried to. Well, we'll get into that in the future. We'll go to Dallas when we get there, but I ended up leaving the territory. I ended up giving my notice because of it. He thought, I don't know why he thought he could get away with that.
That's insane.
Well, Fort Worth wasn't a major place, it wasn't a Dallas Coliseum or anything, but I think the house was maybe $8 or $9 or $10,000. And so to give, I don't know what he paid Jack, but to give, one of the guys in the main event $100, I guess he thought he could get away with it. But
right. I'm just thinking here with Gory promoting, unless he has some kind of a deal going with El Santo. I'm thinking Santo. There was an agreement made, likely before he came in for X amount of bucks guaranteed, because he doesn't have to work there, especially coming back, 6-7 months since his last appearance. But we'll go back to the Amarillo loop every week here on Thursday. You worked on Duffy in your very first match in the sports arena. The following week, you follow up. You wrestle Mr. Wrestling, which is Gordon Nelson under a mask, and you defeat him. Match goes about 17 minutes, but there's a little context to this. You beat him by countout, but for those who don't know, Gordon Nelson, as this Mr. Wrestling mask character, he had just come off. It was a very brief, like a month run, but he was the Western States heavyweight champion. He had defeated Terry Funk, lost it back to Funk a few weeks later, but he'd just come off a very brief run, but he beat Terry Funk for that Western States title, which was the main title here in this territory. And now here you are 2 weeks into the company, and you're going over on him, even if it's by countout.
Well, I had no idea. Again, I didn't know the difference between the preliminary guys and the main. Well, I mean, I did. The Funks weren't. I never saw anybody named Funk in one of the first two matches, but my bookings were up and down, and they were in Florida. Sometimes in the same week. And again, I'm only giving this as a way to show why I thought the way I did was in Florida. In some towns where I might be getting a push, I would be higher on the card than in other towns, where I might be in the third match, and then the town the next night I might be in a semifinal special match up like the fourth or fifth or sixth match. I never paid much attention to that. I didn't have any resonance with me. That they should have, but it just didn't.
Right. Well, they hammer it home here because this second week you're here, July 15th. Not only do you go over on Mr. Wrestling by countout, on the same card, they also give you a big push and win in a 17-man battle royal. So 2 wins on the same show. And you've only been here less than 2 weeks.
You know what? Sounds like they're pushing me.
A little bit. That's why I said it's not necessarily a really fast track, but I mean, you can't get much better. I mean, other than just throwing you right in there with the Funks, even though nobody knows who you are, you can't ask for much more. As we fast forward another week, July 22nd, Bob Roop defeats the Inferno, the Clubfoot Inferno. That was a huge deal down there. They did the loaded boot gimmick, and the Infernos, as well as Laurenti, Parenti, and Bobby Hart, those were some super over tag teams, like just as over as some of the main event guys here. So you defeating the Clubfoot here with J.C. Dykes, the Clubfoot Inferno, that's a pretty big deal. You're beating one of the upper tier heels.
Yeah, it was. I mean, looking at it now, yes, it was. At the time, well, think about it. In my first week there, I didn't know who was who. And when people were screaming and yelling, I wasn't sure why sometimes. Now, of course, I knew when people were getting heat. Well, for example, the classic move of that tag team was when they do the illegal switch. And, one of them would be laid out unconscious or apparently crippled or something, and they would distract the referee somehow, and the one unharmed one would slide in and act like he was the one that was hurt. Well, every time they did that, everybody in the building that stood up and screamed their lungs out, and that was pretty apparent. Yeah, they got a ton of heat with that stuff, and the thing that, again, made it good was these guys were perfect at doing it. They didn't screw it up. And what I mean perfect, they did it like just a couple of seconds. It didn't take them long to get it done. And that was what saved the referee and put the heat where it should be, put it on the heels. If they'd have taken forever to do it, the referee would have been the one that had to get police protection to get the referee out of there.
Yeah.
So, they were.
Everything I read, it seems like it was a perfect marriage for them two. Obviously, they were brothers anyway, Rocky and Curtis Smith, but J.C. Dykes, just perfected the trio. Like it was like a triad of goodness there, because you had Dykes on the microphone who could also work in that managerial heelish way he did as well. He works quite a bit here in the Amarillo. I was actually shocked how much he works, if you want to call it that, against Dory Funk Sr. So I would have loved to have seen that. He's also working with Buck Robley. They have a feud going on. That had to be interesting, the Infernos and J.C. Dykes versus Buck Robley and Parenti and Bobby Hart, because nobody's really well liked in that whole group. So you have to wonder. Wow. Fans had to really love that. Yeah,
you like it when everybody's getting beat up.
There you go.
Like when you're watching your favorite babyface get beat up, you don't like that.
No.
But when the heels are pounding the crap out of each other, it'd be like if Okuma and I were both heels, and people be screaming, yeah, kill him. Like, well, which one? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was going to say,
either one.
Who do you want to win? I don't care, as long as they beat the crap out of each other first.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as long as they cripple each other first, I'll be happy. But well, those towns were made for those kind of. A lot of times the buildings were smaller and more intimate, and you were like right on top of the action, like in Odessa and some of the smaller towns, to where the fans were almost like part of the show, like a stage play where they were part of it.
I can't imagine how hard hitting some of these matches had to be, because, like you said, sometimes in some of those smaller cities especially, the chairs would be almost up on the ring. And so to make things, you had to really lay things in. And there were certain territories where they just laid it in. But I'm just looking at all these gimmick matches, lumberjack matches, Russian chain matches. I can't imagine, like Terry Funk over Harley Race in a Russian chain match. I can't imagine how brutal that was.
Oh, yeah. And those guys. Now, Terry got hardcore later in his career. I mean, really hardcore.
Right.
In a sense of deliberately going out and doing these, just ridiculous moonsaults off
the floor.
Top, it's just absolute insane stuff. But at the time, the business wasn't that way. But we had people like we were talking about. Don Fargo was doing. His book was called Hard Way, and he would deliberately, rather than using a blade, he wanted to get punched and busted open, because it was his way of showing the fans that this is real. And certainly it was. I mean, when they were doing that was real. Now, the fact that it was kind of set up and agreed to by both parties might take some of the importance out of the reality there, but still, it was real. And he could go out there, with his eye opened up, and you could see it, the blood pouring out when he walked back to the dressing room.
Yeah.
Well, that was Don's way of saying, I wanted to give the fans their money's worth. But Terry hadn't gotten there yet. later on when he got into the hardcore thing, and you try to do some, like, be on the same kind of a level with Mick Foley. And the thing was that Mick was younger. Terry was, by this time, had been taking bumps for 20 years or whatever, and already was beaten up. And then he started trying to do those moves. And I read a book of Terry's book in the last couple of weeks, kind of try to jog my memory about our time in Amarillo together. For some reason, he didn't write about my time in Amarillo that much. I can't figure out why. I mean, I don't know what his problem was.
Maybe we'll figure that out before we get to the end of this episode.
Yeah. Well, what a terrible slight to leave me. I mean, I gave my all for, wait a minute, maybe I didn't give my all for Amarillo, but, oh, yeah. I'm glad you didn't
Amarillo
write it there.
gave their all for you. I mean,
I'm glad you didn't write it there. Yeah, the biggest disappointment in my entire career was not the time I broke my back, but the time Bob Roop, that weasel Bob Roop, left the territory after we all busted our butt to get him over. The next day he walks out. God. Oh, I look back on it. I'm amazed that those guys ever even. I saw Junior a few years ago down at Barry Rose's Fan Fest in Tampa. Dory Funk Sr. was booked, and I saw him and hadn't seen him in years, and he was very. Now Dory Junior wasn't in Amarillo during. He only came to Amarillo.
He was basically part time. It was his family's promotion, but I know he was world champion, so he was traveling a little.
Right, and the only place I worked with him was in Amarillo. He wasn't ever, in Albuquerque or no. He was, at least if he was, I don't recall it, but. Yeah, I worked with the program. I worked with him, and I was amazed. I remembered one match. I remembered a title match, but apparently I had a Texas Death match with him where I went over.
I can't. Well, don't spoil it now. We gotta build to it. I thought you were a booker. I thought you were a booker, Bob. Come on.
Well, but all those times I got dropped on my head all those years back.
CTE, huh?
Some of them.
You're doing pretty damn good for your age, so I don't want to hear that.
Some of them took a while to manifest themselves.
Yeah,
They've been showing up lately. I can't find my way out of the bathroom. But anyway,
oh my. No, we're good. We're rolling right along. We're still on track. We're talking Amarillo. So
back in the bathroom with Bob.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, man. Oh, well, I mean, week one, you work a prelim match. The next 2 weeks, you go over on basically upper card heels, and you're winning a battle royal. And then and I want to take a stop off here real quick in Odessa on July 27th. I'm sure you don't have any memories of this specific match, but it caught my eye because you haven't been in the territory a month. And here's the main event. It's Terry Funk and Bob Roop teaming up to defeat the team of Cyclone Negro and Mad Dog Harley Race. 2 out of 3 falls.
Wow.
Ain't that something?
I saw it.
What a match.
I looked at it myself and I thought, man, I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I mean, the fact that I don't remember that, at the time, I wasn't in awe. I didn't have stage fright or anything, but I mean, I'd already worked, with some top guys in Florida, but
yeah,
I didn't really, well, you know what though? Harley hadn't been world champion yet. In fact, I didn't know anything about Harley until I worked against him. I never saw him until I worked against him. And I don't know if he'd been to Florida during my time there or not. I don't remember. But so he didn't have the stature, and Terry hadn't been world champion yet. And Cyclone, I didn't know him either. In fact, it was about a month ago when I was looking up Cyclone's background. I saw this guy. I told you, I'll repeat it because I'm still amazed by it. 20-some trips to Japan and 20-some trips to Australia during his career. I mean, my goodness. You talk about, again, you got to be over if they're going to bring you back all those times. You have
that many times. You got it in somewhere, some kind of talent going on for you. Yeah. Well, he stayed here in Amarillo forever, and he stayed on top, and he drew. He never got old. I mean, it's amazing how much work he did here on top in the Amarillo territory for as many years as he did. And I get that Cyclone Negro maybe wasn't a nationwide star, and I get that Harley Race wasn't world champion yet, and Terry Funk was more over here just in Amarillo than maybe as a world champion because he hadn't got there yet. But I mean, in hindsight, when you look at this match, and all three of these guys that you're in here with, and maybe you didn't know that because you hadn't been here before, but all three of these guys were main event huge stars here in Amarillo prior to your arrival. So you get inserted in here with three of the very best. So it's amazing.
It is. And it's again why I'm looking back now and going, Senior, Dory Sr., wherever you are, please forgive me. I shouldn't have done that to you, but we got to blame Eddie Gray. Well, I can't do that either. I mean, you talk about kicking somebody when they're down, but that's what I should have told him. Eddie said he only wanted me to come here for 6 months. That's what I should have told him.
Oh, they would have called Eddie, I'm sure. Eddie, what's this?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, so you're beating some tough talent. Obviously, you're starting a main event a little bit here in tag team matches in some of the other cities, and then they bring you back July 29th in Amarillo, and you're beating some of the top tier heels, but not the main event guys. So they take it a little further here. July 29th, Bob Roop defeats Killer Karl Kox. So they just can every week. It's just another tier higher and higher here. I mean, they're meticulously booking this. Bob, how dare you do this to the Funk family?
I know it. And I saw another one. I went 45 minutes. Broadway with Karl, which I look back and the idea of going 45 minutes, just look back and go, I didn't realize I had that in me. But of course, I didn't have to. Karl could have worked with we always say if you could, a good worker and work with a broomstick.
Right.
I did see Garvin go against the Invisible Man, and
I've heard that.
He had about half the people. Well, I walked into the building, Johnson City, Tennessee. I walked in, and we were late, and that's why the heels got held up. And I walk in, and Ronnie Garvin's in the ring alone. Well, the referee's there, but Ronnie's acting like he's got somebody, he's tied up with somebody and pushing him in the ropes. There's nobody there. I thought, well, did somebody slip me some LSD on my
Where's
coffee
Chris
or
Colt?
something? Yeah. Chris, are you around? You mushroom me or something? Because I thought, well, what's this? And I asked one of the fans, I said, well, what's going on? He said, well, he's wrestling an Invisible Man. And I sat there and watched it for a couple of minutes. But as soon as Ronnie saw me, he went ahead, had the Invisible Man do a job for him.
Okay. I was going to say.
But you know what? Half the people were absolutely just Spartan at it. But there were people there that had, for some reason or another, Ronnie just kept pretending that was, and he was good enough that he could do all. He built himself. Now, he couldn't slam himself, but he could do all these bumps and things like somebody was actually doing it. And let's face it, think about the movies that we watched with the Invisible Man. They would do the gimmick where there'd be a cigarette, the lit cigarette in midair.
Right.
You couldn't see the person holding it, but obviously, then you could visualize a man standing there holding a cigarette. I heard people say, "Oh, doing that kind of thing kills the business." Well, it didn't. Ronnie had gone out. They had already. We were a couple hours late, and it was a good house. That was always a good town, especially the way with Malenko and Garvin and Bobby Orton and myself, and they didn't want to have to cancel the show, which really hurt the town, and give the money back, which promoters, that's against their religion. They just never would want to do that unless, I don't know what, I guess if the building burned down with the people in it, they might want to refund maybe half the ticket price to the bereaved. But Ronnie, they went out there. Ronnie put every match he could out there, and then he'd already wrestled, I think, twice, and so there wasn't anybody left for him to wrestle against. So he put in a quick call. The Invisible Man, he came in, and I never saw anything like it. But Ronnie Garvin is an exceptional talent. So again, you just listening to it sounds absolutely, I know, just ludicrous, insane, whatever you want to say. But I'm telling you, there were people standing and watching that match and they were all pulling for Ronnie. I don't remember anybody saying, "Hey, Invisible Man, get him."
Had to be something to behold. Sadly, there's no footage of that, but man, that
I
story's
know.
been out there for years, and it's fun that you were there for it, too, at least most of the match anyway. I'm calling it a match here. Jeez, he's even got me hooked.
Well, I was a heel. I was a heel walking in, and I had.
Well, I was trying to picture a heel Bob Roop walking and going, "What the hell's going on in the ring?" to a fan. I mean, that's how like dumbfounded you were at this thing.
Yeah. It's like, I'm looking at it. I mean, I wouldn't normally now because I wanted to let them know we were in the building. I had the guys drop me off so I could go through and let whoever was in the ring let them know I was there. No, I didn't want to be standing out there with the fans. I wasn't dressed yet. Here you are, you're a heel, you got heat, and you're late too. I didn't want to take the chance of somebody come up and whacking me or whatever. But when I saw what was going on, I had to stop. I was just going to basically scurry through there to the dressing room to let whoever was in there. I could hear crowd noise, so I knew something was going on. The part that was interesting. Think about the referee. What does the referee do? Does he sit in the corner and pick his nose or pretend he's asleep? He had to pretend like something was going on out there too.
Right.
And he was acting like he couldn't see him, but something was throwing Ronnie around.
Yeah.
So, I'm telling you, so either a work of art or a popcorn fart. I'm sorry for that poor poetry, but some people, just the purists, you've got them that criticize everything you do, no matter how good it is. You got people that just their life is made up to criticize things, and they say, "Oh, that killed the business and all that." Well, no, it didn't. We went ahead and gave them the regular card, so they got an extra. It's like at a Super Bowl
bonus
last
match.
night. Yeah, last night there was an extra 15 minutes period. So instead of having 60 minutes, they had 75 minutes plus the second overtime period, a minute or two in that. What a bonus, and that extra 15 minutes was some of the best of the football game.
Mm-hmm.
So what a bonus you get for your ticket cost or your pay. So us putting on a regular show after they'd already had a show for an hour and a half or so, that didn't hurt the town. Ronnie ended up coming back in a match against Malenko. I won't say tore the building down, but I mean, these guys, they made people believe what they were doing because they just were so good at it. Both of them were geniuses in their own way. And when they worked together, oh man, matches were just beautiful, just poetry in motion. Anyway, where were we?
We're in Amarillo.
In the bathroom. Then we got to we're back to Amarillo. Okay.
You got to win over Karl Kox, July 29th. And where do you go from there? Well, Karl Kox, main eventer in his own right, but the following week, August 5th, Bob Roop defeats Cyclone Negro by countout in a number one contender match. The winner to meet Dory Funk Jr. for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship on August the 26th in what was billed as the big 50th anniversary show. Now, I'm not sure how real that is or not, but it's the big show nevertheless.
Wow.
And thanks to Amarillo fan Larry King for sending in the notes there, some context to the matchup. You defeat Cyclone Negro. It's on a count out, but he is the main eventer. He is a former Western States champion, a future Western States champion. He's the real deal, the top heel, and you score a win. And again, just by count out, but it gives you the right to take on Dory Funk Jr., and not just Dory Funk Jr., but for the NWA World title, and not just for the NWA World title, but the biggest show of the year.
I'm sorry, Dory. Oh, wow. Well, yeah, they were pushing me. I don't think there should be any doubt left in anybody's mind about that. Again, you can be getting experience, but you can't be getting knowledge. The knowledge, like in a typical person's career, a normal career, it would take maybe several years to get to that, 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Jack Briscoe worked 6 or 7 years before ever getting the push. I think he'd been in the business 8 or 9, 10 years before he got to break in Florida, and became, Jack Briscoe, the guy that went on to become NWA champion. Now, he had some success because, he had a great background. He looked great, and he was a good athlete. But he was small, was one thing that was held against him. But But he had, when you're learning the ropes, you have that experience of having gone to several thousand matches in 5 years of, your booking. So you work 300 matches a year, 5 years, that's 1,500 matches. So you've gone to those matches and you've had the experience of what went on in those matches. If you're someone who's watching all the matches, you also get to watch what's going on, not just from what's going on in the ring, but from what's going on with the audience, how they're reacting, and what different audiences, like audience made up of Hispanics in South Florida, or an audience made up of, say, Italian people of Italian descent who are watching Bruno Sammartino in the Madison Square Garden. How are these people reacting to what's going on? So to be learning all those things to where you can bring that own knowledge to your own experience of what's happening to you, I didn't get that. I'm being put in these situations, and I'm grateful for it. I'm a lot more appreciative sitting here right now than I was then, apparently. But I didn't understand the gravity. I didn't understand what was going on. If they had tried to explain that to me, it might have helped. I might have said, well, I'll give you another 6 months. Although that would have been a hard one. But to be fair, I might have considered that. But they never did that. Mm-hmm. But again, going and have beaten Karl Kox. I didn't know his stature throughout the business. At the time, he was a major star in Australia by that time, or at least had gotten over there.
Oh, no, he was a top heel draw over there for sure.
Again, being naive, I assume that if someone who is a major star in Australia, then that means that he's a star, but not in wrestling. Now, maybe if you're Paul Newman, maybe in the movie business you are, but in wrestling, no, you can be a major star in one place. So they didn't have international TV, they didn't have national TV then, except TBS. His stature in Australia didn't apply to Amarillo.
Right.
And Amarillo, small town, small cards. We didn't have 8 matches on a card. We had 5, maybe 6, sometimes 4, I think. But
3 and 4 on the split nights. Yeah.
Yeah. So, to me, it was, I don't want to say little league, but it wasn't like being in Miami, and all the color. I mean, we're driving into Miami, palm trees, beaches, ocean, beautiful girls in bikinis.
You just described the entire intro to Miami Vice.
Yes, exactly. And so you start the business. My first show I went to was in Miami. And so you're in that kind of end of the building itself. We're in the Jackie Gleason Theater. In the same dressing room Jackie Gleason worked out of. Mm-hmm. And, your big houses, 10,000 people there. And then you go to Amarillo and you're in Odessa or even Amarillo itself. Do you have any idea, or do you have any stats on what the seating Amarillo, how much would the building hold?
According to Wikipedia, the capacity was 6,670.
Well, see, that's not huge.
Well, I think that's before seating on the floor. So say 7,000. I don't know, somewhere around there.
Well, that's respectable, of course, but it's not Madison Square Garden. It's not Miami. Yeah, again, I'm not saying that the size of the audiences and all that made it look low class or anything. It's just for some reason, well, not low class, but lower importance. There's another factor. I was a shooter in the sense of having been an amateur wrestler. What I was doing now, to me, was not athletics in terms of what going out there was being an actor. But talent, I'm Paul Newman's an actor. So I'm not saying that he's just an actor. No, but to be good at it, usually it takes time. There's very few people that break in and are big stars immediately and remain big stars. Mm-hmm. Some of them are big stars and they burn out in a hurry. But so being in this business, I still, no matter what booking I was put into, I'm going against Terry and I are going against Harley and Cyclone. It didn't register to me. I wasn't saying to myself, wow, I'm really into a big deal here. In fact, I remember now it comes back to me when I was booked against Harley, and I didn't know who Harley was. I didn't read wrestling magazines. I already talked about this, so I didn't know the business. But when I worked against Harley in Albuquerque and we went 45 minutes, my main concern was not about, well, I'm working with who I was working with. My main concern was that 45 minutes. How am I going to get through this 45 minutes? Mm-hmm. So in Matsuda in Miami.
Well, you have a different perspective, especially back then when you don't even know who you're tying up with. I get it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I didn't. The reason I'm saying all this is because I didn't realize the import then that we can give it now.
Right.
That I was in a super upper class there and being put there only on the basis, I assume, of my background, because I wasn't like we talked about Dick Slater in some aspects. Slater was the guy that took to the business like you wouldn't believe. He was like a natural out there. It took me probably a year to get where he was in his first week. He just could go out there and just be anybody he wanted to be, and I was stuck at being myself. Right. I was stuck being Bob Roop. Sorry, you have to. No.
Well, I mean. But we look at this. I mean, you've been in the business 2 years. You've been in Amarillo 5 weeks, and you've just earned yourself a world title shot against Dory Funk Jr. And then I'm looking just throughout August, they kind of cool you off a little bit, just getting you ready for that prep. The following week, you follow that up with just a singles match over Bobby Hart of the tag team, Hart and Parenti. So that's kind of interesting. But also throughout the month of August, just some other matches. You talked about that match with Karl Kox. You did a 45-minute draw in Abilene on August 9th. Now, there's a match in Lubbock. It's Ricky Romero. You're teaming with him against Pac Song and Karl Kox. You guys go to a draw there. So there's some other fun matches throughout here. San Angelo, Texas. You remember ever working in San Angelo? Looks like it was on a Friday, a spot show. Texas Tornado match. This is a fun one, too. Texas Tornado, all 4 guys in the ring at the same time. It's a return match, I guess. The Cyclone Negro and Karl Kox versus, again, Ricky Romero and Bob Roop. So you got to work a little bit with Karl here for sure in the summer of 71. So it's no wonder you have some fun stories and memories of him. But we get to the end of the month, August 26th at the Sports Arena, the 50th anniversary show. It is a stacked card from top to bottom. They bring the ladies in. We got big tag team matches. Cyclone Negro defeats Terry Funk for the Western States title earlier on the show. Haystacks Calhoun comes in to win a battle royal. And in the main event, it is the NWA World Champion, Dory Funk Jr., defeating Bob Roop on a disqualification in 3 falls. And the referee here is Alex Perez. It seems like they would do that from time to time here, especially in Amarillo. Just use one of the prelim guys to work as referee, especially for the main matches. Kind of, I guess, give a little more feel to it. Like we need somebody more important, just the average referee out here to kind of maintain law and order.
Well, Alex had a amateur wrestling background. I think he might have been even a fighter too, a boxer. But he was a tough guy. Mm-hmm. Now I didn't see it. By the time I was there, I think he was past his. I don't want to say prime, but he wasn't being pushed when I was there. Let's put it that way. Now, of course, he was Hispanic, so maybe they felt like maybe that would be a drawing card. Right. But I certainly thought they felt that if there had been DQs going on because we were abusing the referee, having someone like Alex Perez in there would have maybe eased that concern. The fans that they're not going to be able to get out of it by just throwing him around or punching him out because he can punch back. I'm not sure exactly why they did it, but that makes sense to me. That might be one of the reasons why.
Right. Well, I was just looking at the results of this world title match here. It says Bob Roop took the first fall. You pin Dory Funk Jr. with the shoulder breaker. And then Dory comes back in the second fall, defeats you with a sunset flip. And this is where it starts, Bob. It says in the third fall, Bob Roop had Dory Funk pinned for the world title, but referee Alex Perez saw Dory's leg outside of the ring, and so he stopped the count. An angered Bob Roop then picked up Dory's title belt and swung it wildly, hitting Perez, leading to him being disqualified. So you were disqualified in the third fall. You lost your cool there. It says afterwards, Bob Roop then pounded on Dory with the belt, and he had to be pulled off by 4 other wrestlers. So the turn begins here. You lost your cool. You felt the world title in your hands, and then, his foot was under the rope.
Wow. They had it out for me. I beat Jack Briscoe in Florida, too, and I was a champion for like 25 seconds. And Buddy Fuller ran down there and stooged me off and said I hit him with brass knuckles or something, and they took my belt away from me. I should have been NWA champion twice. No wonder I got a bad attitude.
So your heel turn starts. You've been in the basically that had to be their plan all along. They build you all the way up to the main event. They give you a world title shot, and immediately your heel turn begins. So it was kind of interesting how they didn't bring you in as a heel and build you up, but they made you very credible as a baby face, and you did some teaming a little bit with Terry Funk, it looked like. But here you are, you begin your heel turn here, but it continues on, because now that you've done that to Dory Jr., I should say, we turn around the following week, September 2nd at the Sports Arena, a double main event. And one of them going to see Dory Funk Sr., going to maybe exact a little revenge for his son. You're in there with the dad now, Papa Funk, battling Bob Roop here. It says Dory Funk Sr. scores a win over Bob Roop on a disqualification. And thanks to Michael J. LeBay, sorry if I'm pronouncing your last name incorrectly here, but another great Amarillo fan, he sent this and he said, September 2nd, 1971, Bob Roop was part of a double main event in which he faced Dory Funk Sr., while Terry Funk went against Cyclone Negro in a Russian chain match. That's important, Bob, so just remember that. It says, in the match with Senior, Bob got the upper hand and was about to jump off the top rope onto his head. Terry then rushes out from the babyface locker room, but Bob Roop cowardly runs into the heel locker room where Terry chases him inside. Moments later, Terry Funk comes out, I guess basically collapses, lying in his own blood on the floor in the arena. Obviously, Bob Roop had attacked Terry Funk, or Terry ran into a sabotage back there anyway. But it says, even though Roop made his way to the ring to offer to take Terry's place in the main event, how nice of you. I'll take his place. I'll go for that Western States title.
I'm very nice that way.
The fighting champion, Terry Funk, reemerged, and he got in the ring for the main event. However, immediately, this was a Russian chain match where you have to touch all four corners. Cyclone Negro picked up the dazed Funk and carried him in all four corners to win the championship match. So you basically not only took out Dory Funk Jr. last week, but you took out his father this week, and then you cost Terry Funk a match with Cyclone Negro for the Western States title. That's pretty damn fast heel turn.
Wow. Yeah. What could those guys have done to, on a serious note, I'm trying to sit here and think, why would I not have felt that something extraordinary was going on? And I had the answer. The answer is, in spite of all those matches you're talking about, in spite of me going 45 minutes with Karl and 45 minutes with Harley, I never made more than $700 a week doing all those miles. Mm-hmm. I didn't get big payoffs. I'm not beefing or crying about it now. I'm just making note of it. That's why now, if I was making $3,000 a week and putting a couple grand in the bank every week, of course that would have momentum. It would be, hey, it's a big deal, especially out here. But, you're making and here's another factor. In order to get to those matches, maybe I put in by Amarillo on Thursday night. Maybe in the past 4 days prior to that, I've driven 2,500 miles. So those factors have to be taken into consideration. What we're talking about is what we saw on the stage.
Right.
But what you and I are basically giving our loyal listeners is what's going on behind the scenes. Well, what's going on behind the scenes is days and days and days of being in the cars, right. Missing things going on at home. You got a sick child or something, and sorry, give them your best while you're there, but you got a book. You got to go down the road.
Well, yeah, I get it with the tiresome traveling, the family issues you had discussed already on the last episode and whatnot. All of this put together, I get maybe it's not worth that the story that they're telling in the ring, but I still think when we look back how masterful this was to get you to where it is. The fans love the wrestling storytelling as well, and I love the behind the scenes, looking at it through the eyes of the business person, the wrestler businessman versus just the character on the screen, as you said. And I totally get that, being able to look at it from both sides. But the story they tell here, your heel turn, and you get one up in the same night over the father as well as the younger brother, basically trying to raise the ire of the world champion in order to get another title shot. So it's pretty damn cool stuff going on in the ring, but I get what you're saying about the behind the scenes stuff as well.
Well, you brought me back to actually a better frame of mind, because, yeah, what they were doing was building me up to make more money and to make more money on a regular basis, to be in the main event circuit. Because the weeks that I didn't make that much money, I wasn't in the main events everywhere. I wasn't like the main event or even a co-main event everywhere. I was in preliminary matches in some of the towns, so I wasn't going to get a main event payoff. Now, once I got over and had done it as a result of doing things like we're talking about, I could have gone and been in main events just about everywhere, to where maybe I would have made $1,500 a week. And so it depended on how it drew. Then how it drew depends on would have been my ability to have heat, and enough heat that people really would pay to come see me get beat up. And with the Funks, Senior and Terry, they had proven for Senior for 20-some years, and Terry for however long he'd been around, and Junior had all proven in different ways that they could beat people up, or they could make them pay some way. Junior could do it in like an hour of torturous type wrestling to wear you down and end up getting his figure four on you. And Terry could just attack you coming out of the gate, wait for you outside the dressing room, and pound you all the way to the ring. And Senior, wherever. Yeah, you know what? The back scene, the thing behind the scenes wasn't at all glamorous, but what you're talking about, what we came of it, of being able to go out there and we're talking about giving wrestling fans, and I want to thank again the historians out there, anybody who's given us information of stuff we can talk about to help us remember it better. Yeah, those are good times for our viewers, the people who are watching, and it gave us credibility. I wouldn't be sitting here now talking to you if those things hadn't happened. I should take back my crybaby act of a minute ago. Oh, I had to be on the road all day, and they were building me up to make some serious money. Wow. And I was making decent. I was probably making the equivalent of $1,500-$1,800 a week on today's money.
Oh,
back then.
If you were making $7, it was a lot more than that today.
Yeah. But again, in order to have a personal life with my girlfriend, I had to take her on the road with me, and that's why I ended up getting rid of the car I brought down there, and that's why I bought the Volkswagen van, so she could travel with me. Right. And if we needed to, we could sleep in it, because those vans had a fold-out bed in the back, so we could pull over the side of the road at a rest stop or whatever. Because by the time I'd learned it, now today you couldn't imagine it. In fact, in Amarillo area, it's not the same. But those state roads I talked about that went on for 300 miles of nothing, right. There were no rest stops. There were not only no gas stations or any lights hardly, except off in the distance.
Well, only somebody that's a fool or out of their mind would be traveling down those roads, Bob.
Exactly. Yeah, somebody desperate. So, yeah. But looking back, they were working real hard to get me over. I mean, when the whole family puts their blood and sweat and tears into it, what more can you ask?
Well, they did everything they could to get you built up to that position as a main eventer. You get a world title shot. You lose your cool. You turn on Dory Funk Jr. The following week, you basically take out the other two Funks in some way, shape, or form. You cost Terry the Western States title there. You take out Papa Funk, and basically you were going to jump off the top rope and finish him for good if had it not been for Terry. And that does indeed raise the ire of one Dory Funk Jr., who returns to the territory a couple weeks later, September 16th at the Sports Arena. Now on the undercard, Terry Funk and Cyclone Negro continue to feud over that Western States title. But in the main event, listen to this one, guys. Texas Death Match. Bob Roop defeats the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Dory Funk Jr. Bob Roop going to the top rope, leaping off, and coming down with a stomp into the spine of Funk, rendering him unconscious and unable to move. Now, Roop was fined reportedly $500 for his actions there, but he scored the win. Dory Funk unable to get up after that flying stomp off the top, and Bob Roop is the winner. And what he refers to from that point forward on TV, Bob Roop refers to himself as the uncrowned champion. So you're the uncrowned NWA champion. Love that heel heat there. But there you are. You score a win in the Funk's famous match, the Texas Death Match. You beat a Funk in a Texas Death Match here, the world champion.
Well, man, I know it was a work, but just the idea, I'm thinking back of watching, back when I was really green, watching Dory Jr. and Jack go an hour, 3 or 4 different places, different times. And then I go out there against that guy I saw, Dory Jr., who was this master in the ring. And I've seen him where he's in front of 10, 15, 20,000 people and got them all just spellbound watching him, and just got him in his hand for an hour. And now I give this guy a shoulder breaker. Yeah, again, I know it's, what we're doing out here is, it's not for exactly real, but the idea that I had the stature to be able to do that means a lot to me, because I don't remember doing that. I wish I did. Like, boy, it'd be good to have tapes of this stuff.
Well, what's really good is you're feuding with the Funk family, but at the same time you're not. Your main feud here is with Dory Jr. because they're slowly going to try to program you with Terry, and I do say try, as we'll get into here in just a little bit. But I was looking at this coming off of that match. You defeat Dory Funk Jr., but he's back on the road defending his NWA World Title. So in the meantime, they just kind of utilize you in other ways. You're defeating Ricky Romero here on September 30th in Amarillo. We move ahead a little bit. And October 7th, you don't even have a wrestling match per se. It says 3 fans challenged to break your famous submission hold. I'm assuming you did the old sugar hold challenge here in Amarillo. It says that this was in the newspaper. I actually have a clipping of this. It says 3 fans were unable to escape your finishing hold, your submission hold in some sort of a challenge here on this October 7th card in Amarillo. Any memories of doing that there in Amarillo?
No. But
it seems odd that they would randomly work that in here, but you are a heel now, so I guess it makes a little more sense.
Well, I remember doing it in Tampa as a babyface. Yeah, right. I don't have a problem now with that, but at the time, when we get to the Papos, that's a great story about exactly this. We got to the point where I told him, I said, look, when I broke into business, one of the things that the guys used to rib me about, I talked about Don Carson and Dick Dunn. We'll go back to, I think, our first or second show.
First episode, yeah.
Me being in the car and those guys not even talking to me, acting like, oh, wait a minute, I was the Invisible Man because I was the Invisible Man in their back seat. Let's put it that way. But one of the things they talked about was Dale Lewis taking on this challenger. Dale had the gimmick that anybody who could beat him would win $1,000, and so he took on a guy in the ring in front of a crowd in Tampa, and he didn't beat the guy. Didn't beat him, but Dale couldn't beat the guy, so it went like 10 minutes, and that's just an absolute, basically an expose of the business. So, Don and Carson were having fun, like saying, oh, yeah, those amateurs, they can't even beat fans from the audience, So, yeah, those guys. So, anyway, I'm in the backseat burning. But using that as a starting point, I would tell promoters that wanted to do that with me, I said, don't do this. I said, there's no good from it. It doesn't do any good. If you want to do it in private, in like a place like the Sportatorium or someplace, that's one thing. But to do it in front of an audience, there's no upside to it.
Well, that goes back to the Carney days of trying to beat the big strong man, the wrestler, or what have you. Really is what it feels like to me.
Well, it is, but see, first of all, I had, so let's say the week before, I had done a thing with the Funks where Terry Bloody, Senior, Dory beaten, Senior, whatever, and then the next week they want me to take on. Say one of those fans gets away from me.
Yeah, I could see.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Oh man, you talk about an expose.
Talk about killing your heat too. I mean,
it makes the Funks look like pussies. Yeah. I mean, I've told them.
It just seems so odd that they placed it here so late in your run. It's almost like they didn't know what to do with you here while Dory's back out of town. So, They give you, and this goes on for not the challenges with the fans, but just random matches here for most of the month of October. You're wrestling Bobby Hart again. They got you against Mr. Wrestling. You do go over, obviously, but you're just working, guys, I guess, waiting for Dory to get back into town. Now, Dory did return, though. Before any of that, I should point out, after that 3-fan challenge the following week, now that's an excellent point that you just brought up. What if one of those fans had escaped because they had you booked the very next week on the 14th in October in Amarillo, Texas Deathmatch return, world champion Dory Funk Jr. coming back, exacting revenge, defeating Bob Roop in 37 minutes. So you guys have another great match. This time Dory gets his revenge. He goes over as the world champion should. But you're right. What would that have meant, really, for Dory to even beat you after a fan beat you? Well, broke your hold the prior week.
Right. Yeah. It does. And the other thing it does is it kills me as the wrestler.
Oh, yeah. It kills your heat dead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not just having to pay the guy money or whatever, but it especially a lot of times, without going into detail, the guy that got away from me weighed about 130 pounds. That's why he got away. He was too small. I couldn't put the sugar hold on him.
Well, it's like when my kids want to break, a full Nelson, my smaller ones, you put it on them, but their arms are so tiny, they slide right out. Yeah.
You can't get a hold of them, can you?
I get you. Yeah.
So that's how the guy got away. Plus, he was apparently he did martial arts where he stretched. Mm-hmm. He was very limber. So it doesn't matter what happened. He got away.
Yeah.
And so I'm standing there looking at a guy half my size. He weighs 125 pounds. I weigh 260. And he got away. Now, I'm supposed to be, last week I beat Randy Savage and his mother and whatever. And now, and now this 125 pounder just got out of my hold. I mean, I started out in the sugar hole and he got away. What does it make? I'll tell you, it's a potential disaster for what are you getting from it? And what they got from it, I still believe to this day. I think there was a sadistic kind of a thing, but maybe it was a way. Maybe they were saying, okay, we're going to have fans get involved to kind of make a kind of a leap from being all for the pros here and the fans here. We're going to bring them together, a pro and a fan, and show that the pro can easily handle a fan. Maybe that's what it was about, but I'm telling you, it was risky business.
Well, I tell you what, just going back and looking at this just came to me right now as I'm going back and just looking over the story they're telling here between you and the Funk family. It seems like, I don't want to call them an afterthought, but it seems like Dory Sr. and Terry were simply in here storyline purpose only for this feud, which is really you and Dory Funk Jr. And now Dory goes over on here October 14th, so that feud essentially comes to an end. And a lot of people would say, well, shouldn't you build it to the world title match? And I guess in a lot of ways, a lot of people would say, yeah, maybe he should have wrestled Terry before Dory, but I like that they did this because now you're a player. We know you're a main event caliber star. Now that Dory has put you there with him, now you can go and work Terry for 3-4 months or work Dory Sr. because now you're established. You're established immediately because you were working the world champion first. So I love that they did that. Obviously they had more plans than you did, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, just looking at that, Dory goes over on you. That part of the feud is over with. Terry Funk's slowly moving away from Cyclone Negro, and it looks like they were kind of building towards you and Terry next, which, obviously, we see a matchup here between you and Cyclone Negro, and if you defeat him, you go over on him in November 4th, November 11th. Here we go. It begins. Bob Roop battles Terry Funk to a draw in a 2 out of 3 fall match. So 45 minutes, 60 minutes, I'm not sure, but you're working Terry here to a draw on November 11th.
Wow. The Funks, the threesome, they had a real advantage for both Terry's career, for Junior's career, and of course it helped Senior too, having two guys, his sons, two people he could count on as workers, as wrestlers in his own territory. When Junior was champion, they worked a deal, and I'm sure they might have done it in other territories too. I know they did it in Florida, where Terry and Senior would come down and they would get involved in Florida wrestling. They weren't on the road, they weren't there every night, but for special matches, they were trying to run interference for Junior. You had Jack Briscoe or whoever it would be, I remember Jack was the one that they were aiming at, would have to somehow go through Terry and Sr. In order to get to Junior. And it was a great way to to have collective heat for all three of them. And also it was a great way to give stature to Jack Briscoe, for example, because he overcame all three of them. But those three guys together, having that advantage of their family tie, and of course they were loyal and they could trust each other, and they were all talented. Yeah, that really worked out in other territories, but it's especially effective in Amarillo. Think about one territory, little territory, in Amarillo having two world champions, NWA champions, in a period of 10 years or 15 years. Just remarkable. Again, because Amarillo, no matter how you want to try to look at it, in terms of their capability of if they sold out everywhere, of how many fans they could draw, paled in comparison to like the Carolinas or Los Angeles.
A lot of the territories, Vince Sr., the Vern Gagne, a lot of the territories had much larger arenas, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I get what you're saying there. And other than it being the Funks, and it was kind of in hindsight in my world as I was growing up, they'd already been the world champions, so it was just there for me. But I get it, like to have two sons, they're brothers, obviously, and they both hold the world title, and they're coming from a territory as small as Amarillo is as far as some of the size of the other territories.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was remarkable. Well, it showed the clout that Senior had, and I'm not sure. I'd try to do some research and try to find out how Senior and Eddie Graham came to be such partners in a sense, and building up Senior for Dory Jr. and Terry, and Eddie for his interest in Jack Briscoe.
Well, luckily, Dory and Terry both were able to back it up, being the world champion, I mean.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you mean in terms of physical ability?
Yeah, being able to hold that title and be credible.
Oh, yeah, they were. And Terry was, I have no idea about Junior, but I'm sure he was capable. If you grew up a Funk, you probably had to know how to fight. I know Terry didn't look for trouble, but we talked in another issue about how he and Senior would get publicity by going to bars and picking fights.
Right.
To show, to do, they were doing promos in the bars. So that was legitimate. Yeah, to have credibility with fans, because, everybody was always, especially after, now this was later, but after McMahon went out there and said, well, it's not real, it's just sports entertainment. It was hard after so many years of guys, busting their butt to try to show that what they were doing was real.
Yeah.
What a betrayal in a sense. Yeah, Dory, and one of the things that Senior had out there was the Texas, I'm not sure what it was called. It was a boys' ranch. There was a place where he took kids that didn't have, were homeless. And
well, they might have had something, that might have had something in common to do with Eddie, too. I think Eddie had something like that going on as well. Eddie
got it from Senior.
Okay.
Yeah, Eddie got it from Senior. That's great publicity. I mean, and I'm not being callous there. Say you're doing it for all the right reasons, you're truly giving and kind and want to help those less fortunate. But it's also, in Florida, it was called the Florida Sheriff's Boys Ranch. So here we had, law enforcement involved, and they plugged it. I don't know if on every show, but they plugged it on TV all the time.
Right.
So, and we actually went up, where was it called? There was a place, it was named after a tree. We actually did a show up there a couple times. Went up and had a wrestling show at the boys' ranch.
Uh-huh.
And the money that was drawn that went towards maintaining the boys' ranch. I think the boys kind of donated their time or their match. So, yeah, it was great publicity. But Senior's the one that started. In fact, when he ran the ranch, he lived there, and their family lived there. And so Terry and Junior had to behave themselves and be as disciplined and responsible as those boys on the ranch were. Because that's one thing Senior did. A lot of these kids were trouble kids. The reason they were homeless was because they got kicked out of their home or whatever, and because they couldn't behave. Anyway, yeah, I always appreciated that and Senior was Dory Funk Sr. I really felt like I liked him. I thought he was a good man.
Mm-hmm.
He was an amateur wrestler in college, and that's something we had in common. And it's not for that reason alone that I thought he was a good guy, but I just liked him, being around him and everything. He had a sense of humor, and like all promoters, you have to be able to manipulate people. The ones who do it to get in their pocketbook are called con men, but if you're just doing it to try to achieve your ends, that's the way of the world. In every relationship between an employer and an employee, there's always some manipulation going on either side. Nothing new that happens in the wrestling business, but soapbox out again.
That's all right.
Where are we?
We're getting down to the nitty gritty, as Gorilla Monsoon used to say. It says, let's see, we come off the November 11th show. You do a draw with Terry Funk, which is a huge deal. Following week, you're wrestling Mr. Wrestling. Not really sure what that was about, but the week after, November 25th, Thursday, so I'm assuming that was Thanksgiving. It's Bob Roop over Dory Funk Sr. on a DQ, so maybe Sr. lost his cool there, but you go over on him on a disqualification. And then somewhere shortly after that, I believe you give your notice because your bookings change drastically in some of the cities. You're starting to work where there's split towns. Sometimes you're working the smaller city. You're also starting to do jobs for guys that you weren't doing jobs for prior. Not anything wrong with that, but obviously you're on your way out. So, but they don't bury you or anything like that. I mean, let's look the following week in Amarillo. You're back in the ring with Ricky Romero. Now, instead of going over with them this time, you guys are going to a draw, but they're still protecting you to a degree here. And at this point, Lord Alfred Hayes also arrives, and he's going to be part of that main event scene. So it kind of worked out for them. Even though you're leaving, at least they have somebody that they're plugging in there almost immediately, because Al Hayes basically, it seems like he takes your spot. And I'm not saying they would have booked you the same way they book him, but he goes in there, he works with the Funks, he gets the Western States title, et cetera, right after you leave. So it's kind of interesting what could have been here. As we look at your final week here, Bob, Mr. Wrestling going over on you, Pac Song scoring a win over you in Lubbock. Bob Roop gets a win, though, on the way out. Your final match in Amarillo is, we talked about this prior, Gentleman Ben, the Wrestling Bear, wrestling Bob Roop. It says he beat you on a count out. I think you thought maybe you had his shoulder pin there, but it's kind of funny. You give your notice after everything they did to you and for you. Yeah, on your way out, it's like, okay, we'll get him. We'll put him in the ring with a bear.
Well, the credit I get in the statistic place is I beat the bear in Odessa,
okay.
But
that's true.
not in. I tell you, this is when I do feel remiss because I don't remember working. I don't remember going against a bear in Amarillo. But think about this: they could take me anywhere other than Amarillo and beat me like a drum, and try to milk every bit of credibility that was put into me by people doing jobs for me and put me over. They could put that back into somewhere else. And that's why giving your notice and giving 2 weeks for that to happen is professionally correct and the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
You took other people's credibility, they laid down for you, so it's your turn to do the same. And the guys don't want to do that. Well, anyway, I won't go there. But they couldn't do that in Amarillo. Because if they did, think about Amarillo. I beat Dory Funk Jr. there. I beat all three of the Funks there in one way or another.
Good call. Yeah, even on the way out, they can't really bury you because, you had just beaten basically all the Funks in some way, shape. Good call. I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
They can't have Ricky Romero beat me right in the middle of the ring after the Funks couldn't do it.
Right.
So that's why they had to protect. I would want to say, well, it's because they were planning on me coming back. I don't think that was it at all. But no, they had to protect themselves. They couldn't just thrash me. I don't know if I would have. I don't know. I probably would have gone along with whatever they would have asked me to do, just out of gratitude, because I didn't plan on ever coming back there. I told them early on. I repeat it. My object in the wrestling for pro wrestling was to travel, but I'd seen all I needed to see of Southwest Texas. I'm sorry, it's just not my. I mean, it'd be one thing if you say you had a camper or an RV and you were going from place to place. There might be some great scenic places you could find, off-road things you could find, a cave network or springs of some sort that are unusual. But
if you had the time to do that.
Yes, if you can, if you're taking a trip, a vacation. But to be traveling up and down those roads every day, to me, every day's the same. And it's just, I don't know, it was boring. And I was young. I was young in the business. And maybe as I got older, as Cyclone was by the time he went there, maybe he welcomed that. But there were other factors. I'm sure he had his kids in school. He was able to buy a home there and, enjoy the ability to have one of the great ways to make money back in the day before they started messing around with the banks was to buy a home. You bought a home for a set amount, and then 10, 15 years later, you sell it for 4 or 5 times that amount. And that was a way to make some money through real estate in your own home. So, yeah, it might have been fine for him, but I couldn't conceive of coming back to that kind of existence. As much as I like Terry. Junior was hard to get to know. He was not very personable. He wasn't unfriendly. Senior was fun. He was one of the boys. Junior just kind of was in his own space. And, very, what are you going to say? The guy's a world champion. He's a nice, big, tall, good-looking guy. His master's work is great. He's obviously a very, very talented person. So he didn't have to be nice to anybody if he didn't want to, but to be respected.
Right.
But yeah, I like those guys. I respected them all. But I'm sorry, it's my life. And again, I told you on the past episode we did that about my personal life being in disarray. Mm-hmm. So that was another factor.
I'm not sure what day you actually finish up here. I do have results December 11th in Hereford. Bob Roop battles Lightning R. Jones, who was Sonny King, to a no contest. But I've also seen that your final match was December 12th, the following day in Albuquerque against Ricky Romero. But the story goes on TV that you were injured by Romero in Albuquerque. So for all intents and purposes, you're definitely gone after December 12th. But I found it interesting that they had been promoting you at the next Amarillo show versus Terry Funk. So it looked like the feud was going to pick back up and really get going there, but you're gone. And Killer Karl Kox comes in and subs for you as you're already gone from the territory. And a couple weeks later, you're back on Florida TV in your very first match back in Florida. You return to defeat Ole Anderson for the TV title in your very first match back. So you get one of your titles back, the TV belt, now in Bob Roop's hand once again, defeating Ole Anderson right out of the gate there. But that was your trip through the Amarillo territory, 6 months. You get 2 months in, you're working the world champion, you do the heel turn, you're feuding with the Funks, you get to work a lot of the other top talent in the territory, and you're back in Florida by the end of the year, just in time for Christmas. So palm trees or Christmas trees, take your pick, but it's a pretty fun run that you had there, and you tell the story, you've told it before, about they expected you to stay. They were doing so much with you when you told them you were leaving, they were blown away, like, wait.
Oh, God. Yeah, all three of them, well, not Junior, but Terry and Dory Sr., they smiled at me. They thought I was ribbing. You got to be kidding, Because if I'd have known the business, if I had been smart, if I was experienced in the business, I wouldn't have started out by saying, the reason I got you together here is because I'm giving you my notice. I would have started out by saying, look, I'm aware of the fact that I'm really taking liberties here, and I want you to know I'm so sorry, and I apologize, and maybe I can come back some other time and try to make it, but I have to leave. I would have done something like that rather than just give them my notice like, oh, well, I'm here. You guys put me over like $1 million, but you know what? I missed a palm tree, so I'll see you guys. Give me 2 weeks from now. I'm going to be gone. See ya. Have a good time. Have a good life. Yeah, I didn't have a clue. And that's okay. That's life. We learn as we go along.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting. You talk about, you bring up the match in Florida. I mentioned in another episode that Buddy Fuller told me, we don't have any place for you. just no place for you. And I said, well, I'll take a couple bookings a week. He said, well, you're not going to make any money. I said, well, how much can I make? I've told you this before, but he said $300. He could have said $100. I would said, I'll take it.
I just want to get back to Florida.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I'll get my foot in the door.
Well, I think I knew that.
Right.
I mean, I didn't, but I wanted to get back there. Anyway, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? That within 2 weeks, I'm on TV getting a championship.
Right. Yeah. We don't have any place for you. Just seeing what you would do. Obviously, and then when you weren't budging, you're like, yeah, I'll take that money. I guess they had to figure out something pretty fast there, and it didn't take long. You finish up around the 11th or 12th in Amarillo, and you're back working December 23rd on TV here at the Sportatorium in Tampa.
Of 1971.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow. You know where I go next?
From Florida to Australia?
No, in February I go to Iraq.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I took the TV title belt reminded me of that. Because they wanted me to bring a title belt with me, and I brought that. That's the only belt I had. I guess I could have borrowed one from Graham, but I think they probably wanted to use it in the house shows to have the champion go out there with the belt on.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the champion is by the time you go there, but yeah, you did recently win it here, so that would only make sense if they wanted you to bring a championship over there. Plus, Graham probably wasn't giving up his Southern title to take over to Iraq. So, yeah, that's Amarillo in a nutshell, though. Took 2 episodes.
Wow.
It was a fun trip. It was a great time to kind of relive that and look at some of the history, the story told there by the Funk family, and what could have been. Think about what your 1972 could have looked like there in Amarillo, working with Terry. What stories people would still be telling about that today. But it is what it is. Hindsight 2020, and obviously you still went on to have quite an interesting career in Florida and beyond. So. And obviously with Iraq not too far away in your real life here in 72, it probably won't be too far off here on the show as well.
Well, it's a good point but Ray, if I had stayed there, first of all, let me say this. Thank you for all the research you've done. You brought all the structure to what we just talked about by having I looked up who I had worked against and things just to want to see what kind of memories they would stir up. But you brought all the salient details. Thank you and thanks to the fans, our listeners who wrote in with information, historians and things. Again, thanks to everybody out there who's helped us out that way. But I want to thank you for helping me do my thing, to be able to bring my memories out. And on that token, I don't think you and I can look at anything that happened in the past and say it was the wrong thing or even unfortunate.
No, right.
Because if we did, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, that's
true. We wouldn't be doing this.
Where we're at right now. I get you. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get my. Well, the reason I got my honor, my Hall of Fame things, I think, is for staying alive long enough to qualify. Everybody else was gone, but the other thing is that if I'd done anything different, I wouldn't have been able to travel and do the things that bring on that kind of honors.
Right.
But thank you again, my friend, for putting together all the little details and things that allowed me to do what I'm trying to do here.
Oh, man, you're absolutely more than welcome from my end. I just love listening to the stories, and I learn so much myself as we go along, and I do the research, and even as we talk, I put 2 and 2 together sometimes, and I more revelations come. So it's always a fun time, a great experience, and you never know what stories you might have that we might jog your memory here, and you never know what we're going to get. So I'm always looking forward to that, and we'll continue the research, and we'll continue to tell these tales every week here on the program. I had a listener ask me, this being February, Black History Month, if maybe, before the month ends, we could tell a few tales of some of the stars. I know in the past you've talked about Bearcat Wright, for instance, JYD. So maybe I'll throw a few more names at you, see if you have anything for that as well. Pay a little respects to some of the African Americans who paved the way for their race here in the wrestling promotions, because it was rough times, back in the 60s and whatnot, some of these guys. But some of them made it, and, they walked so others could run. So I thought maybe we could talk about a few of those next week and see what else we got on tap.
Well, it's great. T-Bolt, Thunderbolt Patterson and I were pals throughout, off and on for the first 10 years of my career.
Okay.
And Ernie Ladd is someone, of course, Rocky Johnson. There's a lot of guys that I got nobody that I don't have anything good to say about. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's going to be a good time, guys. So stay tuned next week. It's going to be our salute to Black History Month. And if we got any time left on the back end of the show, I'll throw you a few more questions as well. But
sounds good.
That'll wrap it up here this week, Bob. Appreciate you taking us back to Amarillo, Texas, and the Funk family territory. That was a great time. Not a lot of people still around who worked that territory because it was dying by the end of the 70s. And so, you got to be Bob's age in order to, really tell some good stories there. The Funk family era. And I loved it, man. It was a great time.
Yeah, well, I a lot more fun talking about it than was doing it.
Than driving it, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, good memories. Again, having the ability to be around Senior, but not that much. But be around Terry and be in the ring with them and with Junior. It was an honor, Junior was a great champion, one of the best actual wrestling champions around. I don't know, Fez might have been up there with him, but Junior just had this great psychology, and it was an honor to be able to work with him, especially looking at it now is so different than I looked at it then. Then I just didn't appreciate it. I mean, I thought it was something. I didn't think, it's just another night.
Right.
But it didn't have the importance that it does now.
Well,
so
I think it's safe to say there was really no hard feelings at the end of the day. You said Dory Sr. was calling you again, trying to get you back there, and you got to work with Terry in Florida, and he lent you advice and whatnot. So obviously it wasn't like a huge deal to where they were just done with you forever. So that's got to feel good too in the long run. But man, just a fun trip. I really enjoy. I hate editing. It's the least favorite part of my job here as the podcast, the network. To get the show out, and make it sound just perfect as best I can. But man, just going through that last episode, it was fun just listening to it again. So I'm sure it's going to be the same way with this one, and looking forward to next week and beyond.
Well, thank you, Ray Allen, too. We'll be back. I'll be back. We'll both be back. Thanks again, Ray.
Says Terminator Bob Roop. I'll be back. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up here this week.
And all right, guys, that's going to do it here this week on the program. Just a reminder, you guys can go and follow friend Bob, over at facebook.com/Poor Bob Roop. Bob, looking forward to hearing from each and every one of you there. You can also follow me, Ray Russell. You can follow me on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. It's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, facebook.com. And don't forget about that $5 all access tier over at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. So many gifts for just $5, and you're really helping out a great cause and keeping the network thriving. For $5, guys, you get so many gifts. Plus, you show us that you're there. You show us that you care. But for now, I am your co-host, Ray Russell. On behalf of Bob, we'll be back soon with another edition of the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop.